Welcome everyone, it's Gray Shirt Guy. I'm Rock the Gray Shirt. As always, it is the 23rd of January, and we're going to be going over what's been going on the channel and what's been going on since the last video. And yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to be talking about what we painted, and some moving forward with some different armies, and yeah, and a nice fun project that's been kind of soaking me up for the last few days. So let's get into it. All right. I don't know. I think my head will be off for this one just because I want you guys to see the whole thing. Hold on. Click. All right. So we have finished a squad of Repentia. So I have 3 of these. This is the one squad that has the older original metal Sister Superior. They used to call her the Superior Sister Mistress or Mistress Superior back in the day. But so what I did with this is I have 3 squads, and there's 9 Repentia and 1 leader in each squad. What I did is I went with 3 different skin tones. I went with a lighter, more tan, and then a dark skin tone, and then I went with 9 different primary colors for their tops. And each squad has a unique set of shorts colors. So this squad is the black shorts. They have the black shorts, and then that is why the mistress has black robes. And so what I'm going to be doing to tying the leaders into each squad is I'm going to paint whatever their shorts color is going to be what color robe on the mistresses. Now for the other 2 squads, I have the newer plastic mistresses, the newer plastic sister superiors, and yeah, I think they turned out pretty well. They are heavily detailed. They take a lot of time. I didn't get burnt out, but I did not immediately jump right into doing the other 2 squads. I did a lot of base coats, but I didn't do a lot of like the detail work. So moving forward with the next squads, what I'm going to be doing differently is mostly just the shorts color is going to be differently. Since almost all the other primary colors are already done. The chain swords will still be the same, will be black. The hair colors will be, I think I've done all the hair colors, but I think what I have left to do is the chain swords, the silvers, the bases. I'm really happy with these bases. They are, I believe they're Micro Art Studio bases, but I did some dry brushing and I did some purples and some blues, and they look really good on the tabletop. And these are just a little bit higher than normal. I did not do a lot of flesh washing or a lot of highlighting for these ones, the normal tan and the normal and the darker skin tone. I did a little bit more highlighting with the lighter skin tone because it looked a weird sickly color when I did it. But yeah, moving over to, hold on. And then this is the back. These ones right here with the long chain bells, those were a little bit more harder to do. And I did do some highlights. These, it's weird. These look really good in photos. I did some highlights on some of the backs, but most of these is just like what happens after the wash. Obviously, I did highlight the black cape, and I did blue for the electric whips. I'm not sure if they're like normally supposed to be blue, but to me they're power whips, so I went with blue. And yeah, I think these ladies, turned out pretty well. I'm excited to paint the other 2 squads. What I'm probably going to do is, so right now I'm doing a Cadian squad, and then after I'll do a Repentia squad, I'll probably do another Cadian squad, and then I'll do the last Repentia squad, and then after Repentia we'll probably move on to a Sisters Battle character unit, and then after the character unit we'll probably get into like some regular Sisters Battle, and we'll kind of just keep slogging our way. Sisters of Battle seems to be like 2025 is shaping out to be Cadians and Sisters of Battle kind of just alternating, so I don't get like too like focused and burnt out on one. And yeah, we're just going to kind of see what I can get done with the time that I have. All right. So this is not a test model because I've done a whole video on how to paint orange and black armor. I've done a whole video on Penal Legion before. It was at least over a year ago before I moved, so it's probably might be 2 years ago at this point in time. But what I wanted to do is I was like, look, I have 2 boxes of these older Acadians and I have some upgrade sprues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint one model of this squad, put a lot of really nice effort into it, see if I can get the orange to look really good. And so, yeah, this is where we're at. And I actually have a lore primer. I don't know where it is. I saved a lore file for this regiment, and it's going to come out when I finish the whole regiment, or the whole little unit. I'll do a special showcase video for like the lore and the history behind the regiment. But they are the 728th Cadian Penal Legion, specifically only comprised of those that were in the fall of Cadia or shortly around the fall of Cadia. And I had a bunch of upgrade sprue heads from the older upgrade sprue kit for the Cadians. And so those heads had a bunch of different skin tones. And I posted these pictures on Instagram. I posted them on YouTube. I posted them on Imgur, however you want to say it. I posted them on different Facebook groups. And within about an hour, I got a lot of questions about why, because I only posted this one model because this was the first model I had painted for Penal Legion in well over almost 2 years. And because I was trying to decide, do I want to strip my old Penal Legion and go just straight Cadians because I really love the Cadians now in the books, or do I want to stick with the Penal Legion? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and ultimately between my wife's suggestions and some Facebook comments and some other polls, everyone really loved the orange and black. So I was like, all right, we're going to stick with it. But the concept of older Penal Legions in the older books, where it was just they only have las guns and they're basically cannon fodder and they got explosive collars, I was like, no, that doesn't really fit. So I made custom lore that's sort of kind of tied into some of the other books, some of the other newer 40 guard books, where these are Cadians. They are in their own penal regiment, but they're still given the normal weapons that would be given to a shock trooper. Like, they still earn the honor of being a shock trooper. They just are now sent into the worst of the worst. They are the first wave. They are on a penance, and if they survive the penance, then maybe they can get a commuted sentence, or maybe if they survive a certain number of them, they can shed the orange and black and go back into the tan and green. Well, I got a lot of questions as to why I chose a dark skin tone, and in the upgrade sprue, when GW released the upgrade sprue, either for the old kit, which these are, or even the new kit, they used a bunch of diverse skin tones. And so a lot of people were equating Penal Legion to the skin tone I chose. The vast majority of people were like, great model, looks awesome. And I to me, it looks really good, especially like way better than the Facebook, where Facebook will downscale some of the photos. But it looks really good here. And it was kind of like, I got a lot of reactions. And some moderator came in and closed comments, and I was like, guys, I'm honestly, I just picked one of the many skin tones that I paint, and because like it gets boring if you only use Bugman's Glow and Cadian Flesh Tone. And I know someone in the comments were like, Cadians were only fair flesh or fair skinned with purple eyes, and then I was like, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal that I chose a darker skin tone. Oh well. And but yes, because there are a lot of lore stories about Cadians, like Cadian soldiers, men and women, having children with off-worlders from far off places. There are Cadian regiments that were far away from Cadia, and of course they mingled with the local populace, and so you would end up with Cadian children and offspring from Cadian parents, or from at least one Cadian parent, and they had a term for them, I forgot what it was. And so of course you'd get a bunch of different diverse skin tones, and there have been a lot of the Warhammer Plus videos and animations showing all the different skin tones for the different Cadian regiments. And so like, I didn't feel like it was supposed to be controversial. I just chose a darker skin tone for this one model because like the face structure kind of fit it, and I felt like a darker skin tone was fine. It's yeah. So that was interesting, but yeah. So this is the first part of the regiment. that I had painted a while ago before I even moved. So the idea is that I'm just doing 1,000 points of Penal Legion. I want to do 1,000 points of Penal Legion, and then I kind of want to do the rest of them in the orange and green of the normal Cadians, because I've been reading a lot of the Cadian books. And so what I'm going to do is, because I already have the models, is I'm doing a 20-man blob of the older models. So 20-man blob of the older Cadian shock troops. And then a 20-man blob of the newer Cadian shock troops. And those will be 40 Cadian shock troopers in the orange and black. So we get to see it in both the old and the new. They all have Voxcaster, Plasma Gun, Melt-A-Gun, and the sergeants have Bolt Pistol, Chainsword, I believe. I believe, yeah. Yeah, I believe it is Bolt. Yeah, I think that's... Yes. Bolt Pistol and Chainswords. So those are the Cadian shock troops, and then we'll have... Because I have 2 command squads, so I wanted 1 command squad for the old, because I have an old command squad, an older command squad, and a newer command squad. And then... luckily, the loadouts are pretty close. The only thing is that this guy should have a las gun and not a chainsword. But I think I can finagle that the las cannon's hiding somewhere, and the chainsword is just for fluff. So I had 2 command squads painted this scheme, and I was trying to figure out if I want to repaint them or not. I decided not to repaint them. What I decided to do is to just make... They're going to lead a 20-man blob and a 20-man blob, and then we'll have the heavy weapon team with the mortars. And we have 2 other unpainted basilisks, so we'll have 3 basilisks, and then we're going to throw the one of the Imperial agents, the police officers, like the Judge Dredd guys. We're going to throw a squad of those in there to be more like, kind of like the police, and then we're going to kind of like the penal wardens, because we have the officers. Anyone who's not in the orange is not a criminal, so these are the officers who maybe either were gifted the penal unit, or may have committed enough of a failure that they were saying, look, we're not going to charge you with a crime, where you're not going to be labeled as a convict, but we will send you to watch over this penal unit for a period of time. So they were assigned to a penal unit. Either they may have pissed somebody off, or maybe they requested it to form some sort of glory. But it's going to be a smaller 1,000-point block, and I think that's going to be a pretty good size for this unit. And I didn't really want to paint a bunch of different Leman Russes or Chimeras or things like that, but I might have one Inquisitional Chimera. I'm not 100% sure yet. But the or the 3 Basilisks, and it makes a little bit more sense. So because they don't have the exploding collars, if for whatever reason we wanted to what we can do is we can have the shock troopers go in thematically, and then we can use the indirect fire to sort of if we hit our own men, we hit our own men. So it's kind of we're not really sure. So I think it's going to be pretty good, and I'm really liking the idea of having part of my Cadians be the Penal Legion, but then have the rest of the Cadians be the normal, traditional, Cadian 104, 101st, or there's the 101st, and then I had another one, it's 532nd or 523rd. I just made up my own homebrew one, but this was the first model I got to use the decals from the kit, so I used this. That's why I picked the 728th. But I did the decals for the Cadian Gate symbol and that. So I think they turned out pretty well. But yeah. So a little controversy, but it was fine. Moving on. So let's do a little zoom in. So with the new Guard Codex, it was announced, and I think I did a video complaining about this, but I don't know if I ever posted it. It was announced that the basic infantry and the basic platoon command squad are gone. And that means that my Steel Legion that I just spent all of 2024 painting is not a legal loadout. I mean, we're fairly certain, because the rules are going to get dropped tomorrow. Either tomorrow or Saturday is when the release is. I'm not 100%. Yeah, I think it's Saturday. Which I'll have to go and get the rule book somewhere. I don't want to buy the box set, but I'll probably get the rulebook when the rulebook drops 100%. But I think we're gonna get the Steel Legion or the infantry squad as a Legends unit, which is fine. But I had painted it, and I wanted to play with those models because I painted them so well, and I put so much time and so much effort into them. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want them to be Catachans because I don't have 2 flamers, and I have a whole Deathcore Krieg army, so I don't want to proxy them as Deathcore. I was like, I guess I can proxy them as Cadians. It's fine, but I didn't have enough models, and since the entire all of the infantry models, or most of the infantry models in the army are metal, I was like, I gotta bite the bullet. Now I had just sold a bunch of Magic cards, and I was gonna buy a camera, but I had to swap a battery on my car. I was gonna buy a new stop motion camera from Canon. It's about like $1,300. So my next stop motion videos could be a little bit better, and I can use some dedicated software. But right when I was about to buy the camera, my car's battery was 5 years old. The car's fine. The car's doing great, but the battery started to go old, so I had to go buy a new battery. And then I had to get, then my roof has been having some weird drainage issues in one section of my roof, so I had to pay some roofers to come out and fix the roof. So by the time that was done, I didn't really have a whole lot of like fun spending money. But I did have enough to go on Troll Trader and get, well, I had plenty, but I didn't have enough for the camera, but I had enough to go on Troll Trader and find 6 Steel Legion plasma guns and 6 lasgun troopers. And so I will be painting these the same scheme that I had painted my other ones, to like add them in. And so then we'll have 6 squads of metal Steel Legion models to be used as Cadians, and they have a Voxcaster, a grenade launcher, and a plasma gun. Not as ideal as a Meltagun, but I think it'll work out, and we'll have, and then we will technically be able to field 120 once the other Cadians are painted, 120 Cadian infantry shock troop squad. So I think that'd be kind of cool, being able to fill the whole mass blob. And then it'll be a mix of the Steel Legion, a mix of the Penal Legion, and a mix of about 20 or so normal Cadians. I think it'll look pretty cool. Plus, I'll have to get a couple more Chimeras and stuff, or maybe not Chimeras, because if we're foot slogging it, I'm definitely gonna have to just like Bane Blade and a bunch of other tanks and stuff, because a lot of things went to Legends. The Crassus went to Legends, or Crassus is going to go to Legends. Macarius is going to Legends. So a lot of the stuff that I had painted for the Steel Legion is kind of gone, which is fine. I can either play with them as Legends or whatever, but we'll figure it out. And I think it'll be pretty cool to proxy these guys as Cadians. So we order those, and those are on their way. And if I ever play a game where it's only Steel Legion and I'm using the old infantry squad rules, I can just figure out putting the heavy weapons in or whatever I want to do. So now, because that changes, so here's the problem: if I'm going to proxy them as Cadians, as Cadian shock troops, I have one, because these were in the Crassus, and everything else was in Chimeras. I had one command squad that was leading a blob of 20. But this is a platoon command squad, and the loadout's not correct. Now, it's supposed to have a medic, a standard bearer, a master Voxcaster, one other guy, which could be a plasma or Melta, or he could have like a fancy sword or whatever, and an officer. So the officer loadout's fine. Plasma, power fist is fine. The standard bearer in the old platoon command squad could take a chain sword, so that's why I gave him one. He's supposed to have a las gun, if he's the correct loadout, but so I'm just going to say he has one. I don't know if I want to like glue a lasgun onto his back or something and figure that out. I'm not sure. The medic is supposed to also only have a lasgun, but he's got a chainsword, so we're just going to stick with that. I don't want to have to like break him apart. The plasma gun was supposed, it's funny because this is the body shape for the old Voxcaster. So either I want to put the Voxcaster on I want to put the Voxcaster backpack on the Meltagun guy if I can, and I'll just paint it. And then sure, he'll have a Meltagun, but it'll be a las gun or las pistol or whatever it'll be. But I want to keep. I was worried that I was just going to have to redo this whole squad, but I decided I'm just going to add the backpack onto it to make it a legal Cadian command squad. But yeah, so that is the Steel Legion. My Steel Legion are now Cadians, for the purpose of the future. Now let's move on to the fun thing that's been kind of taking up my time for the last few days. This bad boy right here. So, over the last 20 or so days, I have been painting the tracks for what I thought was a Leviathan. I thought this thing was called a Leviathan, but it is actually called a Capital Imperialis. The person who made this model, who made the STL for this model, also does offer a Leviathan model. I'm not going to link where I got it from, but if you go look for Capital Imperialis, you're going to find pictures of this, and you will find your way to the files if you wish to for them. There's some issues where like some places don't want you to promote where you got your STLs, also because it's not a model that GW produces, but it is a model that they used to produce in a much smaller scale. So this is a much bigger scale. It's a slightly different variation of it. So you could say there's enough changed on it to not be the same thing. But I'm going to be using it as a Capital Imperialis. But yeah, so we have, these are the track sections. And as you can see, that table is a 4 by 6 foot table. So it's taking up a large chunk. And it might be a little bit wide. No, that's about the size it's supposed to be. The tank is supposed to be able to hold at least 2 super heavies inside of it, inside the bottom belly. So we have, I put a Beyblade there for scale. This thing is massive. And with it, let's go look at some older editions of rules for this. So the Capital Imperialis, the older rules, and this was like a scratch built one that someone made. Looks like with like wood and plastic art and a bunch of stuff. And I believe this is the one that the official GW team did a long time ago. And it had a bunch of plasma cannons on each side. It had a volcano cannon, an observation deck, and it had a bunch of firing points. It also had a huge 100-mile troop transport capacity. And it can transport vehicles, infantry, and cavalry. Super heavies may not be carried in this original version. And it had the volcano plasma cannon. It had firing ports. It had 20 on the left, 20 on the right, and 10 on the rear. But the vehicles inside it could not fire. It was considered super heavy. It was 1,600 points, so it was pretty cool. Had 6 void shields. This was basically just like an apocalyptic tank. And if you look for the Capital Imperialis, you'll see some other pictures of like it with like the scale of this version of it. And I think the one that I'm printing is a very similar scale. But let's kind of move on. So this is a mock-up from the guy the guy or gal who made the vehicle. And so this one is a little bit different. So it's still got the 3 plasma cannons on each side, and they're kind of twin linked, but I didn't give them twin link rules. There's 3 on this side, 3 on this side. It also has 12 of these lasgun type arrays on each side, and it has 2 Hydra batteries on each side. It also has the turret volcano cannon on the top, and it does have a cool little radar dome as well. And you can see the Leman Russ is coming out of the front, and the back is where the super heavies would come out. I don't have another angle, but there is if you look for this vehicle, you'll find this. And so I made a couple versions. This was version 1. So we got the volcano cannon and the plasma cannon, and it had a lasgun array, which was like rapid fire 2 shots, and I gave it 24 of the arrays, but that was, I guess, was a little confusing. Let me zoom in. And I gave it some armored tracks and some things. I gave some transport rules. I wanted to really kind of beef it up and make it really cool. And I sent this out there, and I realized that while my version can transport Titanic models, I never said it couldn't transport this model. So someone's like, oh, you can put the Capital Imperialis is inside of each other, and I was like, that's not supposed to be that. So I had to fix that in the next version. And then I made this mobile command array, and I took Titan Killer from the Shadow Sword vehicle because it had a volcano cannon, but someone told me there was a lot of feedback on this one, so we look at this and we're like, okay, this looks pretty cool. Let's go on to version 3, which is the version that I just finished today, and I think is probably the one I'm going to stick with. So we upped it to 4,000 points. It's got a movement range of 12 inches, and honestly, on a normal game, like, you're not going to use this on a normal game, but I'm definitely going to use this on, like, at least some stop motion at some point. It's going to be freaking awesome. It's got toughness 16, so we kind of looked at the Warlord Titan and we took a bunch of rules from it. So we got toughness 16, 2-up save, 100 wounds, leadership 6+, OC 40, because it's like, yes, your objectives is controlled if this thing is anywhere near it. And we had a 5 of invulnerable save. Originally, I had just a regular invulnerable save because Void Shields don't exist anymore. In the 10th edition, Void Shield rules are basically invulnerable save only against range attacks. So I had to add the against range attacks only, so we got that sorted out. Now, as far as armament, we have the standard Volcano Cannon. It's the standard rule, the Volcano Cannon profile from the Shadow Sword. So we have heavy, blast, all that good stuff. And then I finally figured out how to do the different profiles for that. So we have the Capital Plasma Cannon. I originally had just regular Plasma Cannon, but I wanted to use the profile from the Leman Russ. I believe it's Executioner or Exterminator. It's the Leman Russ with the Plasma Cannon on it. So I borrowed from that, what we call it a Capital Plasma Cannon. We have both a standard and a supercharge, which get hazardous. And we got all the 36-inch range and all the goodies from that. And then for the arrays, just for the sake of simplicity, I changed it to the Capital Hellgun Array. I didn't want it to be like the Chimera's Lasgun Array. I wanted it to be, one, I wanted the range a little bit longer, and two, I took the profile from, I believe, the Hotshot Volley Gun, I believe is what I took the profile from. Or the... Yeah, it's the Hotshot Volley Gun, or it's the basically the las guns that it's the ones that Kassergins, what used to be called Hell Guns, for the Stormtroopers. So what we have is 30-inch range, 48 attacks, because you have 24 of them total, and we don't deal with facing anymore, so if you're within range of the hull, you're within range of all of them. So it sounds silly, but that's just 10th edition. So if 48 attacks, 4+, so the Volcano Cannon I did give a 3+, but everything else is 4+. Strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. And rapid fire 48, so if you're within half range, it does 96 shots from the Hellgun Array. So I just don't recommend getting close. There's a lot of reasons I don't recommend getting close to this thing, but if you really want to get close, like you want to get melee, go for it. And the Capital Flak autocannons are just the Hydra profile for the Hydra gun. So I think that's going to work out pretty swimmingly. As far as melee weapons, we have Ancient Armored Tracks, and I decided to give them Anti-Fortification 2, which is just like better mortal wounds against fortifications. And that will kind of carry on to what happens later in the abilities. So war gear options, no war gear options, no heavy stubbers or hunter killer missiles on this bad boy. And then we have the unit composition Capital Imperialis. This model contains a 1 Volcano Cannon, 6 Capital Plasma Cannons, a Capital Hellgun Array, and 4 Capital Flak autocannons. And the Ancient Armor Track. So those are the unit compositions. And then we're going to get into transport next. So this model, I upped the transport capacity to 200 because rule-wise it's supposed to be able to take 2 full regiments. So we have a transport capacity of 200 models, which I think is pretty sweet. Each infantry, so it's not infantry models, it's just 200 Astra Militarum models. And that's a key distinction. Someone was like, oh, you put knights in here? You can't put knights in here. Knights are not Astra Militarum. So each infantry model takes up to 1 space. which makes sense because normally when you see this, transport capacities will say 200 Astra Militarum infantry models, and then it would kind of go further into that. But this is just model, so I had to specify that an infantry model, each model takes up one space. It's getting late over here. So now, because of the Deathcore Krieg heavy weapon team, I had to specify for the other heavy weapon teams. Each 2-member heavy weapon team, so that's right now that's the Cadians and the Catachans, and cavalry models take up to 2 spaces. So a Cadian heavy weapon team would be three models but 6 spaces. And same thing with Catachan, but a Krieg heavy weapon team would take up 4 spaces because it's 4 infantry models because they're not doubling up. Each Ogren model, which is Ogrens and Bulgrins, take up to 3 spaces each, which is normal. Each field ordnance battery and sentinel model takes up to 5 spaces, the space of 5 models. Each artillery team and vehicle model now takes up the space of 10 models. So because the artillery team's on a huge base, and vehicle models is pretty much all of the other vehicles. Titanic models take up the space of 50 models, so that would be all of your Baneblade variants. Because unfortunately, with that also counts if you're using. If you're playing with this, go ahead, bring your Legends models with you. So if you're using all of your Macariuses and things like that, they take up to 50 spaces. Now, only 1 aircraft model and up to 2 Titanic models may be embarked at a time. Now, aircraft models are a little interesting. This version of the model has both an observation deck, which is probably large enough for a Valkyrie, I can imagine, but it also has a rear landing compartment for the normal transport, the Veritas, I forget what to call it, but it's the normal little transport. And since the only flyers that are actually usable in 40K are the Void Lightning attack aircraft, because for some reason it didn't go to Legends, and the Valkyrie, I was like, whatever, we'll just let 1 aircraft model land on this thing. And then which makes it really interesting for putting the aircraft onto the battlefield. Technically, would it be turn 1 or turn 2? Because normally they'd be in strategic reserve, and you have to wait to take things over to strategic reserve. But if they're inside this, you can get that Valkyrie popped up really quickly. So that's kind of cool. And it cannot transport Capital Imperialis or Leviathan models, because I will at some point get the Leviathan model as well. The Leviathans are like much smaller. They're bigger than a Baneblade, but they're like half the size of this, or maybe a little bit less than half the size of this guy. Now, vehicle and Titanic model weapons cannot be selected for firing deck. This thing obviously has a firing deck because it has a huge observation deck on top, as well as firing slots throughout the whole thing, not including the array. You got a bunch of troopers manning the Helgen array. You still have other troopers inside manage that. They got free time line as well. Models embarked within this transport do not count towards the transport capacity. However, their weapons cannot be selected for firing deck. Now, I've had some feedback on this, and someone was like, well, if a Chimera can take 12 models inside of it, but you're only giving them, they only take up 10 model spaces for a Chimera, you should increase the vehicles to be like 20 or 22 or something like that. And I disagree. I believe that the transport capacity is not about the weight of the vehicles inside. It's about how much room is inside. Because this thing is a god engine of god engines. It's massive, and I don't think adding a little bit extra weight is going to be that big of a deal for a tracked vehicle of this kind. And I like a fully loaded Chimera. Sure, it could have. Let's see, if your average trooper is 100. Let's do some quick dirty math. Let's say we got 175 because Cadians are pretty stout. Let's go 180 for Cadians times 12. That's 2,160 pounds. I'm assuming that's not a significant increase on top of what the weight of a Chimera chassis is. I'd have to look at it. But I'm like no. So you can fill this thing up with 10 well, let's see, you would be able to take 6 Chimeras. So you got 60 points worth of transport, and those are all loaded up, and then you can load it up with more infantry. It's fine. It's an apocalypse vehicle anyways. It'll be okay. Sure, you could also load it up with 2 Stormlords that are fully loaded with 45 models inside of them, and they don't count against you. So it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I think it'll be fine. Especially for 4,000 points. Now let's get into the abilities. These are pretty interesting. Let me see if I can zoom in on these bad boys. All right, so we have Deadly Demise. It's supposed to be Deadly Demise 10d6 plus 2, and I don't know if this works the way I think it does. And I could be wrong. What I'm trying to do, and if this doesn't make any sense, let me know. Or if there's a better way to word this. I did type in 10d6 plus 2, but the website that I'm using to make these, I think it's like database cards, deck cards, something like that, formatted it this way where it's 10 brackets d6 plus 2. What I'm trying to do is I want Deadly Demise, when this vehicle explodes, I want it to be able to do up to 80 mortal wounds to everything within 6 inches of it. Because in the lore, this thing has been sacrificed to take out Biotitans and destroy entire sections of a whole battlefield when it exploded. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it do up to 80 mortal wounds. At the very least, it would do what? That would be 10. That'd be 12. Whatever 12 times 10. Hold on. Let me think about that for a second. So let me do the quick dirty math here. Because if the maximum would be 8 times 10. If the minimum would be 3, so 30. So at minimum, we're going to do 30 mortal wounds up to 80 mortal wounds. That's what I'm trying to get it to do when it explodes. But if there's a way to do that, let me know. We have Firing Deck 50. And because I just thought Firing Deck 50 sounded cool. All right, let's get into the abilities. We have Mobile Command Array. This is very similar to what the Chimera has, but we're a little bit more fancy. In your command phase, up to 3 officer models embarked within this transport, even those embarked within another transport within this transport. So yes, you can have an officer in a Stormlord that normally doesn't have an ability to do this, issue orders outside of the Stormlord while you're inside of here. Why? Because if you're in the Stormlord, you're already locked in to the Capital Imperialis's Vox network, and yeah, freaking what is his name? Like a commissar inside of Stormlord issuing orders. It's fine. It's okay. I'm allowing it. The radio inside the whole thing works. This is probably one of the coolest vehicles ever. So yeah, and if you're in a Chimera, you already have the ability to issue orders out of the Chimera anyways. So this just kind of extends it. And plus, if you're in a Leman Russ, if you're in a Rogel Dorn, I didn't even realize I should I give extra transport point? No, I don't know if I should. I don't think the Rogel Dorn's, it's not Titanic, right? I don't think so. Is the Rogel Dorn Titanic? Pause for a second. Is the Rogel Dorn? I don't think it is. I think it's just a normal vehicle. But let me check really quick. I just thought about that. See, you're always building things in real time. Keywords. It is not. Okay, so, I mean, sure. Rogel Dorn has the same transport capacity as Leman Russ. It's slightly bigger. It's fine. I'm not going to make the Rogel Dorn be like, I guess I could make it 15. I could add it. I could add those points in there. Let me know. Should I increase the Rogel Dorn's capacity to or occupancy space to 15? I have enough room. You start to run out of room if you make too many rules. So I guess I could add 15. But but right now it's 10. So either way, if you're a Royal Dorn tank commander, sure. But anyways, let's go back to the rules. So it can be issue orders even though they're not on the battlefield. That's cool. When doing so, measure distances to and from this transport. Order ranges using this ability is increased up to 36 inches because it's got a giant radar dish on top of it and is a huge thing. So I feel like it should be able to reach out and issue those orders very far from it. And so I increased them to 36. Not so up to 36, so not 36 on top of whatever your range was. 36 is the cap, which I think is pretty cool. Now, the other special rule that I gave it was disembark the regiment, and so increase the disembark setup range for this unit for units within this transport to within 12 inches and not within engagement range of any model. Now, that's only for disembark. You still have to embark within 3 inches, which makes sense. But the reason why I did this was twofold. One, it's kind of an assault ramp thing where I want to get the unit out as quickly as possible. I want to unload that 200 transport capacity as fast as I can. And if you have to go within 3 inches of the body of the vehicle, there's certain tanks that don't really fit well within those 3 inches. And I get it where like just get as close as you can, but I want the cinematic rollout. So I gave him 12 inches to get you that extra room, and you can disembark anywhere around it, but I want people to be like disembarking from the back and disembarking from the front. Hopefully, I don't want to add rules to where like you can only like Titanics have to disembark from the back. I just hope that's kind of how it looks, but either way, that's what I did with Disembark the Regiment. I thought it was pretty cool. And because people complained about Titan Killer, I made something worse because I thought it was funny. We got Wrecking Mass. So Wrecking Mass is me hating terrain features. In one of the Horus Heresy books, I believe it's the first one. Jeez, man, sorry. In the Horus Heresy books, I believe they do talk about one of the first ones, maybe the first or second. They talk about leveling an entire continent, like flattening an entire continent, so the Emperor could have a celebration marking the end or beginning, or marking like the conquest of Olenor, I think it was, or the end of the War of the Beast. I can't remember what it is, but they flatten an entire continent. And so I was like, why would something this large not be able to flatten an entire continent? So that's what I did. And also because like the model's so big, I don't want to get stuck on a random terrain feature. Now, if we harken back, in Melee, it's anti-fortification, because this thing just wants to roll over all your fortifications and all your terrain. So I have Wrecking Mass. During your movement phase, this model may only remain stationary or normal move, so it cannot fall back, and it cannot advance. It can only stop or move forward. It's very similar to aircraft rules. I did see a little bit of the aircraft rules from here. When conducting a normal move, you must only move the model straight forward up to its maximum movement range. So you can go all the way up to 12. You can go 1 inch. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. But you have to go. You can't go. You have to either stay still or move at least 1 inch up to 12. After it has moved, it can pivot up to 90 degrees. This does not count against its movement. It's fine. Each time this model comes into contact with a terrain feature, roll a d6. On a 3+, that terrain feature is removed from play. Your L-shaped ruin is now gone. Your crater is now gone. Your forest is now gone. If it comes into contact with a single tree, that whole forest is a bye. If you roll a 3+. If not, we'll get into it. For each model that is within that terrain feature, roll a d6. On a 5+, remove those models from the battlefield. They are destroyed. Otherwise, move those models until they are at least 3 inches away. Yeah. Or at most. I think it was at least or at most. I think at least makes sense. At least 3 inches away from this model. If a terrain feature survives the roll, this model immediately stops movement. So the whole idea is that, like, the Wrecking Mass, it's rolling. Because the lore-wise is that the Capital Imperialis is so large that once it starts moving, it's almost impossible to stop moving it. Like you can't stop on a dime, but you can stop. Now this talks about terrain features. It can still it'll still stop for models. Like if it's rolling forward, you still can't get in with engagement range of a model of an enemy vehicle that's already there. We're still doing melee and everything. But as far as terrain features, this thing rolls through them. And yeah, so I feel like this is pretty funny, pretty fluffy. You're not really going to have a whole lot of terrain features in like an Apocalypse game anyways, but I figured I want to make this roll just because I thought it was funny. And I'm going to incorporate it somehow in my games. And then of course we have its damage. So if it's below, if it's 33 wounds or less, you lose half your OC, and you know, same similar thing that you would see normally. So yeah, that's my Capital Imperialis little rules, and that's kind of the whole gist. It's been a long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed. We're kind of working our way through. Hopefully, my goal for this year is to try to get double the amount of models I did last year. So last year I did 100. I want to do 200 at least, and I feel like I can get there if I get. So if I get at least 16 models painted every month, I'll get there. I would like to get 20 models painted every month. We're already at 10 models painted for the month. So I'm trying to see. I got to get the rest of this Penal Legion squad painted up, and those will look pretty nice and spiffy. I hope you guys are enjoying the channel. I hope you guys have a great year, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.